Alright, so this is probably the cheapest and the easiest mod for any car I can think of. Plasti Dip is by far the easiest way to take your old boring rims to a whole new level. And the best part is you can go back to your original wheels whenever you like. So without any further delays, here's how to Plasti Dip your rims for the best result possible. Starting off, the most important part is cleaning your rims before you start spraying. Most people Plasti Dip without taking their rims off, and if you go that route, make sure you cover all your brake discs and everything like that with a garbage bag or something like that. But in this case, I decided to take my wheels off so I can properly clean them and get a good even spray. And if you do decide to take the wheels off, this is probably gonna be the hardest part, especially if you don't have any power tools. But anyways, once you have your wheels off, if you're doing that, or either ways, clean your rims as good as you can and use some brake dust cleaner or some multi-purpose cleaner, both work fine. And once you've done that, rinse them with soap and water and make sure the wheels are 100% dry before we do anything else. Next up, I'll be masking off and covering any places I don't want to get dip on. So for the most part, if you're doing this with the wheels on the car, you can just pull the Plasti Dip from the tires when it's still wet and it does come off pretty easy. Or if you want to be extra safe, use some WD-40 or some kind of oil on a towel and just rub that on the tires. So the Plasti Dip won't stick directly on the tires, but make sure you don't get any oil on your rims. So once you're all set, we're ready for our first base coat. Now I'm going for a copper finish, but I can't just start spraying copper on silver rims. So first of all, I'll paint it all black and then add the copper layer on top. So let's start with the first base coat of black. Now this coat needs to be very light. It's supposed to be semi-transparent, and this is where you might mess up, especially if you're using Plasti Dip for the first time. So again, this is my first black base coat, and later on, once I have it all black, I'll be adding my copper metalizer to give it a finishing color. Now this was also my very first time, and soon enough I realized taking the wheels off was a better choice for me. But I'll put this out there, if you have some experience with Plasti Dip and how the spray can works, you can pretty much get an even coat without actually taking the wheels off. But if it's your very first time, I recommend taking at least 2 wheels off, get a hang of it, and then you can try to spray the rest of them with the wheels still on. The most important part here is not having any overspray, and having the rims flat on the ground definitely helps with any runovers. As a pro tip, start spraying outside the rims and then move in and out. Cause you might get a little bit of overspray every time you press the spray bottle, so spray in and out. So press, let go, press, let go. Now you can kind of see I had some overspray on my first base coat, but since I had the wheels flat on the ground, I didn't really have Plasti Dip dripping and the end result were pretty good. So by the time I came to my third wheel, I got pretty comfortable with the spray can, so it really just takes you 2 base coats to get a feel of the spray can and how it works. Now once you're done your base coat, let it dry for at least 10 minutes naturally. And if you had any oversprays like I did, it'll get better with the second coat, and in fact by the time you're done, you won't be able to see any imperfections as long as you don't have the paint dripping. Alright, so about 10 minutes later, I started with my second coat, and this is where everything falls into place a lot nicely. And by this time, you should have a solid hang on the spray can, and make sure you get all the hard to reach places and hit it with every angle possible. Once you're done your second coat, let that dry for another 10-15 minutes, and then we can move on to our third coat. Alright, so my second coat dried up, and now I'm starting with my third one. Now if you're just spraying black, this might be your last coat till you start seeing finishing results. And I do recommend adding a fourth coat just to make the layers a little bit thicker so it can take some small scuffs and scratches. And it'll also be a lot more easier to peel off when you need to. Now for the most part, if you're doing this right, doing your fourth coat is where you should start using your third can. So if you just want to do 3 coats, 2 cans of Plasti Dip should be enough to get 4 wheels done. But it's important adding a fourth coat, otherwise it'll be a pain taking it off when it starts coming out in little small pieces. So for me, I did my 4 coats of black, and by this time I've used 2.5 cans of Plasti Dip. And now to get my finishing result, I'll be using my copper metalizer, and the number of coats you use really depends on the type of color you want. More the coats, the brighter the color is gonna look. So for me, I did 2 coats and it kind of gave me a dark shade, kind of in a brown look. But later on, I decided to add 2 more layers, and that gave me a pretty bright color and it looks really good. So in total, I did 4 coats of black and 4 coats of copper. Now the only problem with Plasti Dip is it gets pretty dirty really fast and it's really hard to clean. So you'll have to use some type of brake dust cleaner or some type of multi-purpose cleaner that doesn't melt away the Plasti Dip. So whatever type of chemical you're using, make sure you try it on a small sample area before you ruin your rims. And after a week or 2, I've noticed Plasti Dip does lose its shine. So you constantly need to clean your rims, otherwise you'll start seeing the color getting darker and darker until you clean them. Now fresh Plasti Dip, I've noticed, takes about 2 to 3 days to fully dry up, but I would recommend using any type of pressure washer or anything to clean your rims at least till a week after you've done your Plasti Dip. By that time, it should be rock solid and properly stick to your rims, and it shouldn't go anywhere, and for most part it does take up small scuffs and scratches pretty good. And yeah, if you did take off your rims, make sure you don't put them back on or touch them for at least 24 hours, let it dry, let it settle up. Otherwise, you can have the Plasti Dip peel off while you're installing the rims, because it happened to me. And yeah guys, that's how you Plasti Dip your rims. It's actually pretty easy and pretty simple, and it's a very cheap way to change the color of your rims. Now if you like this video, let me know in a comment down below. If you need any help, you can ask a question. I'll try to answer all questions I can, and I'll have product links to everything I've used in this video in the description box down below. And as always, thanks for watching.